Hey everybody, welcome to day 13 where I am wearing red for blood because today we are talking all about fight scenes, arguments, and battles, which I have been looking forward to for quite a while now. So if you haven't hit that subscribe button below, go ahead and hit it now, and then whatever it is you're drinking today, for me, it's the blood of my enemies. Go ahead and grab a cup, cozy up, and let's get to writing. Probably tell I am pretty excited to talk about this. So I love writing fight scenes and battles and even arguments, and your book might have all three. And I'm pretty sure this is going to be a longer video than normal because I am so passionate about it and I feel like I have a lot to say. So let's dive right in and talk all about what makes a good fight scene and how to write that in your story. So the first thing I want to focus on in any fight, battle, or argument is how important it is to lay out the scene ahead of time. So when it comes to writing a really good fight scene, you want to know everything about the room. You want to know the exact layout. You want to know all of the objects on every surface, because then you get to use every one of them as a weapon. You know, if your character can grab the corkscrew out of the drawer, or if they can grab the lamp off the table, anything that they can get their hands on that can be brought into the fight can make it more interesting. That doesn't mean you have to go through an itemized list of everything in the room and then weaponize all of them. A lot of times they can be descriptors for how the fight is going. So what I mean by that is, if I have a stack of books on the table, probably don't want to grab those and use them as a weapon, but if one of my characters is hurled across the room, it is way more impactful to read if they're hurled across the room and they hit the desk and they run into the books and the books go flying and there's papers like fluttering through the air as they're trying to stumble back to their feet. That makes the scene so much more exciting and real. For an argument, the setting is a little bit different because it's not so much about the physical setting of where they are and what's around them. It's more, what is the setting of their relationship? What has gone on in the past? What are some past grievances that they can bring up against each other? That's kind of more what would be the setting in an argument, is everything that has gone into their relationship leading up to this, which then can be used as a weapon as they're flinging insults at each other, or as a defense as they're saying, well, you did this, no, you did this, but you want to add a lot of emotion to it and get it really heated. So that's kind of how I would define the setting in an argument. And then if you're planning out a giant battle scene with one side sieging a fortress, or maybe it's out in space and it's a fleet of spaceships attacking a planet, you want to know as much as you can about the terrain. You know, if it is in space, what are asteroids and moons and things your armies could use to outmaneuver one another? Are there any tricky space gas clouds that your ships can hide in and lure the others in before they attack them? You want to know a lot about the terrain. If it's on the ground, it's really important to know if there's anything unique about it. You should have unique elements in your terrain, so it's like the ground can cave in and your characters can fall down into a pit of water or snakes or whatever you want to have down there. It should be mountains that they have to maneuver around. It should be obstacles that make it interesting. It can be the weather. If there is sleet coming down from the sky, that's going to affect both of your armies on the ground. It's really important to know the entire setting around the battle in order to describe it accurately and also make it as interesting as you can. Now, the most boring part of the fight is actually not what you would expect. It is the physical execution of each move. So, counter to what you might think, the boring part of the fight is the actual punches themselves. It is important to know mechanically what a good punch looks like and feels like from a character's point of view, but the actual description of extending an arm and balling their hand into a fist and lunging forward as fast as they can, that is like the most boring part of the actual fight. It's all about the emotion and the suspense and the intrigue. That is what makes a fight exciting. It's not the actual moves, although they are important. You do have to have them and you do want them described well. That's not where you want your focus to be. The intrigue is when your main character is a weaker fighter than their opponent and you don't know how they can possibly win and they have to pull off a miracle and you're just excited to see how they're gonna do it. Or it's when two best friends are forced into a fight to the death and you're trying to figure out how they're gonna live with themselves and if they're gonna do it and what's gonna happen. That's more intrigue. So if your characters are rolling around on the ground as they're struggling for the upper hand, it's less about describing those moves mechanically and more about the emotion behind it and what is being said and what they're saying to each other as they're like pinning each other in the dirt. That is the part that is really suspenseful and exciting. And it's the same in a battle. It's it's super boring to just describe the movement of the armies and like as they climb over the boulders and approach the castle. That's not where the fun is. The reason those action scenes are so exciting to read is because you have a character on the front lines leading an emotion-fueled charge, and there's stakes and there's things that they need to get past, and there's more to it than just the armies moving about in different fashions. That is the boring part. That is the part you want to cut down as much as you can. So one of the most important things to think about as you're planning out your fight scenes and your arguments and your battles is how can you build up the tension beforehand? Because most arguments, if they're heated and passionate, they are coming from a remnant of a leftover argument from before, or some sort of anger that the characters have towards each other that was already building. Like they don't like the way that they've been treated, and this argument is their snapping point. It's the breaking point that makes them just go off on the other character. So try to brainstorm a way that throughout your story you can build the tension leading up to this fight so that it means the most, so that your characters are the most emotionally involved and your reader is emotionally involved and feels like it's exciting. Another tip that I will leave you with before I set you loose to brainstorm your fight scenes and your battles and your arguments is make sure that your character has a defendable stance. So before they go into this argument, make sure that they really have something worth arguing over. This is like specifically a young adult pet peeve of mine, that the main characters will go into an argument and be like, you never listen to me. And the boyfriend's like, I'm listening right now. And she's like, just go away. You don't understand anything. Instead of having good communication and just something that they disagree about, a lot of it just feels contrived, and it makes your character feel weak and emotionally immature, which if that's what you want, if you want an emotionally immature character, that's great. But I don't connect with them as a main character. I won't see them as a hero if they go in and just have pointless petty arguments just for the sake of like looking like they're teenagers. And I know this is gonna come as a shock to some people, but you actually can write teenage characters who have good communication skills, who just have something that they truly disagree about. I know it's crazy, but it can be done. I have two characters in all of my books who are just like, they're best friends, they're in a relationship, they love each other, but they just take such different stances on different views, and they do communicate well. They will talk about it, but it doesn't change their views. And they don't have to change their views either. It's good that you have strong characters who believe in something, but know that teenage characters can have deep thoughts and don't just have to have shallow arguments. Okay, rant over. So we're on day 13. I want you for today's homework to think about a fight, a battle, or an argument that is going to come up in your story. Try to brainstorm ways that you can add tension leading up to it so that it makes sense that your characters are going to snap. Make sure your characters have a defensible point for why they are angry and fighting with another character. And make sure that other character also has a reason to stand and fight. And then make sure that as you go to write these scenes, you're very descriptive in your settings. I would say include this in a different document. Just write out everything you can about the setting. Know that not all of it is going to go into the book, but use that to give yourself ideas for what's in the room that you could use as a weapon, and what is in the room that as your character gets thrown into it, it could shatter and make an even bigger mess than anyone expected. And remember, as you're writing these, you want to come up with 10 more ideas for your notes and ideas document, which is going to put you at 130 total, which is awesome because day 15 is almost here. 150 is our goal. And then if you haven't hit the subscribe button below, hit that now. I'm gonna jump off and talk about my fight scenes. If you can't tell, this is one of my favorite parts of writing. So I will see you guys tomorrow for day 14 of the 60-day novel writing challenge.